What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Anime Princess, and today I'm going to go over my hybrid strategy for farming 8 modded maps that's tuned in a way to try and increase the odds of getting loot explosions such as this, as well as this. Let's jump right into the setup required for the strat, as well as going into the Atlas passive tree. First off, you're going to want to favorite whatever maps you're targeting. This doesn't need to be the same map as the map you're using. So for example, I only want burial chambers, so I have everything favorited here. But if you wanted to get a bunch of different types of maps, you could have half of these be Jungle Valley, and that would be perfectly fine. You don't have to match this with the 8 mod map you're running. You're going to need 4 void stones, and that's because we have 4 mandatory compasses. We're using maps in your maps are corrupted with 8 modifiers. Beyond and Raid Strongbox, as well as Strongboxes, are corrupted. And we're using 4 Scarabs as well. Gilded Cardo, which you could bump up to Winged if you want. I didn't find this was necessary. Gilded Ambush, Gilded Reliquary, and you could use either Polished or Gilded Legion. My build's strong enough that it can do Gilded, although there's no real advantage to Gilded over Polished, except this is cheaper because it is harder. And if the map you're running has really good div cards, you could swap Legion for Divination Scarab, although this will hurt your chances at getting the massive loot explosions, so I do not recommend it. Since this strategy requires 4 mandatory compasses, by default it's going to be targeting T16 maps. However, if you want to target lower 8 modded maps, first you have to put in your map in the map device. You need to open the map with your sections on your void stones, and then simply before you go into the map, you take this off, and then it will start lowering the tiers of your map. So for example, T7 Cemetery is very popular, and you need to remove 3 void stones and then go into your map, and then you're going to drop only T7 Cemetery, but you're still going to have all the mandatory modifications to your map because the section will have already been consumed. In past leagues, 8 mod farming strategy revolved around grabbing all the map drop duplication nodes and doubling them with Wandering Path. This would give a high chance of every map dropping in pairs, and you could amplify this even more with the altars, where you could get more map duplication, so there would be a chance for a map to drop as 4 maps. And you would further scale this with the Enraged Strongbox, because Enraged Strongbox section pulls monsters off your map and throws them in these strongboxes and gives them a ton of quantity. And those monsters that are on your map from the start are the monsters that will give you maps. If you guys weren't aware, most of the league mechanics don't drop a ton of maps, because if the game were balanced that way, you would just get a ridiculous amount of maps when you juice tons of league content, and you would probably get no maps if you didn't do that. So that was the general strategy in the past. This league is different because the league mechanic is so powerful that you simply can't ignore it when coming up with a farming strategy. Simply by doing the wildwood and grabbing a bunch of juice, you are greatly amplifying the potential drops from your map. And these drops you will see most noticeably from rare monsters, because rare monsters, when they're buffed with those 3 different colors of league mechanic juice, will have a higher chance of doing a loot conversion. For this strategy, we're grabbing a bunch of ritual chants, and then we're adding a bunch of mechanics that will likely put rare monsters within the ritual radius. So we have the strong boxes, which are enraged and also corrupted. So those are going to give us probably a bunch of rare monsters, and they're likely going to be inside the rituals. We're also getting a lot of chance for a Legion encounter, as well as guaranteeing one with a Scarab. We have almost a 50% chance of getting a Mirror of Delirium, which will be great when we get that. And all of these mechanics together are going to be spawning lots of Beyond monsters as well. So there's really high potential to get crazy maps, but even if you don't get all of these in every single map, there's still a lot of guaranteed rares. Now, by default, this Atlas tree does assume you're a fast build that can finish the map before the Delirium catches up to you. However, if you were running a slower build or you were having trouble going through the map deathless, you could opt for this small alteration. You're not going to get the rewards at the end from the Delirium, but this will guarantee that we have Delirium for the whole map, and Delirium does give more multiplier to loot, so you don't want to be losing that mirror. This also lets you run the maps more slowly, and it lets you do some weird layouts where just the deli mirror is impossible. That would be my one note for how you would change this. Otherwise, I think you wouldn't need to make any adjustments. We're grabbing these maps found have 10% chance to be higher tier because it works even if you have all the watchstones in. You can Google map equity, but these just make us get even more maps. So those are important. I think everything on here is important. Even if you were to use Div Scarab, I would still probably want to have the Legion chance because then you still want to get rares in your map no matter what. Moving on to my trusty Excel spreadsheet, where I hope to give you guys some solid expectations going into this, as well as just show you guys exactly what I was doing. All right, so I was farming burial chambers. So here's the count of burial chambers per map. We averaged 12 per map. I started with winged Cardo, giving me 12.5, and then it drops down to 12 when I switch to gilded. I think winged should on average give more than just 0.5 maps, but this was just the RNG. Either way, it's not too important. As for the maps, we started with Burial Chamber because this has a really high monster count. Also, we were farming Burial Chamber anyways, so we might as well farm that map. We swapped to Jungle Valley, just wanted to switch things up, and I even threw in some atolls. Now, the point of atoll was I wanted to use the map with the lowest monster count. This is the worst monster count in the game, to see how that would affect it. And it just turns out, I don't know if I got really lucky, but I had some of the highest map drops in these. 28 maps, although this was the loot conversion you saw in the intro. 12 maps, and then 19 maps. So it seems like it doesn't really matter what map you run. You're still going to get a ton of whatever you favorite. Yeah, we started off doing Divination Scarabs just because I love hunting Doctor. And this was giving us roughly 3 fortunate cards per map. And then I realized, you know what, I want to swap this up for Legion. With Legion, as you can see, we're dropping significantly less fortunates now. But it is paying off. There's a lot more rare monsters in here. I only wrote the loot conversions for map loot conversions. So there was 2 with Legion Scarabs and 1 without. Although Legion Scarabs were giving us lots of other loot explosions, we also dropped 2 Hinacor's locks when we were using the Legion. Let's just look at all the maps that had crazy high amounts of burials to see the common denominator there. I'm going to go for 15 and above. All right. So for all these things highlighted, I think the common denominator is they all have at least 4,000 juice. So the league mechanic is probably pretty important. Now, if you look at the ones that aren't highlighted, some of those also have more than 4,000 juice. So, you know, there's a little bit of variance here, but it's still very good amounts of maps that we're dropping. Now, I do have a column here for maps dropped that are not Burial Chamber. On average, we dropped 5 of them per map, even though we are converting all non-Burial Chambers into currency. This happens because of the loot conversions. Those maps aren't going to get converted off. So it's up to you what you want to do with those. Just look at my tab in here. So yeah, a few cemetery. Like they're just random maps. So just be careful if you're throwing all your maps in one tab. For example, for me, I just have 8 mod map drops, and I gave this the map affinity. When you're pulling maps out to run, if you only want to do Burial Chamber or whatever you're doing, just make sure you type in your regex and then also read the map, make sure it is the map you're trying to run. And if you do on accident run something else, for example, some of these ones where it's not Burial Chamber, it's just I pulled out a random map and it wasn't Burial Chamber. It doesn't matter. You're still going to drop Burial Chambers no matter what map you throw in, so don't worry too much about that. Let's move on to the cost breakdown. For this strat, you're paying 166 chaos per map, although realistically, you are dropping a lot of sextants and a lot of scarabs that you shouldn't be too scared of this, even if you're a somewhat budget player, because you can probably self-sustain this. In fact, I definitely am self-sustaining. I'm not buying... Well, the 8 mod map, this is rare. You probably can't roll this and self-sustain it, but you can definitely self-sustain these 3, in my opinion. So just to reiterate the strategy, we are using corrupted boxes, which is 2.5 chaos per map when you average out the cost. Enraged Strongbox, which is 23 chaos averaged out. The Beyond Sextant is 50 chaos per map, and Corrupted 8 mod map is 18 chaos per map. For the Scarabs, Gilded Ambush is 14, Gilded Reliquary is 34, Gilded Cardo is 9, Gilded Legion is 11. And you want to mod Ambush on the map device, which costs 4. So that is all the numbers I'm pulling to get the 166 chaos per map cost. This doesn't include the 8 mod map, so I suppose even though we're getting 12 maps per run or per map, realistically you got to subtract 1 because you are using an 8 mod map. I guess we'll wrap up this video with a little voiceover of just a very average map that we ran. We're doing the Wildwood. Just follow the juice trails, get as many events as possible. I end with a very average amount. 3.7 blue, 2k yellow, 700 purple. Decent balance. Right here you can see we don't even have a Mirror of Delhi, so we lost that 50-50. We're going to get less loot because of that. So, first map. And since we don't have Delhi, I am going to loot as I go. I think that's going to save a bit of time, because these aren't crazy juice maps. We will drop quite a bit of stuff, but it's nothing like this chasing or anything. If I did get a mirror, I probably wouldn't loot. I would go all the way to the end. I might even turn off my loot filter for everything except for like the craziest stuff. Like I'll switch to a really strict filter. Just because, well, you want to be ahead of the Mirror of Delirium, and also there's the added benefit that you're going to keep your head under bust longer and the map will be easier. Just looting, opening up the Legion. We don't have the extra Legion duration on the tree because we're very starved for points. So Legion works best when you have a fast build like Tornado Shot, where you can pop it all open in the normal amount of time. Let's increase rarity. That was a pretty good shrine there. Altar, I should say. And I'm not counting these maps, but we've already dropped quite a few. At least 5 or 6. It's the unique monster, drops a bunch of currency. That's the blue juice. It's not a loot conversion because he's unique. Yeah, there's a bunch of scarabs, a ton of chaos, a lot of sextants. I haven't had to buy a sextant that wasn't the 8 mod specifically for ages, because I end up with like a stack of 500, 600 sextants. I'll just take 10-15 minutes to roll them all, and it's pretty easy to self-sustain Beyond, and Raid Strongbox. Those are pretty common. Just the 8 mod map is not so common. You will have to trade for that. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I did open a portal here. This is especially important if you do have a Mirror of Delhi, because if you die in the 3rd area, you lose your Mirror of Delhi. Like, there's no way to catch up to it. So once you make it here, ahead of the mirror, just put down a portal scroll. So if something kills you, you can come back and you'll keep the delirium up. Yeah. And if we did have rituals, as you can see, almost all the ground has a strongbox on it. So the rituals are going to have a lot of monsters from all the strong boxes. And it will be very nice for loot conversion. Oh, there's a little loot conversion right there. Probably one of the smaller ones I've seen, but you know, it's still not bad. All right, that wraps up this video. Hope I helped explain the strategy. I think this is really good for self-farming, self-sustaining your own 8 mod maps. This league, in my opinion, you should not be doing strategies that don't involve 8 mod maps, because the increase in pack size, the increase in map quantity really do scale with the league mechanic, and it would be a shame to miss out on that. Now, I do stream for anyone interested at Twitch TV/AnimePrincess. For the first few weeks of the league, generally this is a daily occurrence, and at this point I might scale it back to not quite every day, but I do try and keep it regular throughout the year, so you'll be able to find me there playing Magic Find Tornado Shot, and maybe moving on to a bosser or something else in the near future, as we've already done a lot of magic finding. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.